motivating for us. Okay, that's fine. So yeah. So yeah, welcome again, everyone. So tonight, Aileen, my colleague from Globe Ireland, and myself, we're going to guide you through this training. We're going to start with the reasons why studying clouds is important, and then we're going to get into the practical aspect of the training. And there will be a bit of time at the end for questions, but we will try and keep it within the 35 minutes we planned that training for. So of course, 30 minutes to study clouds when night is falling and we're doing that online, it's it's a short period and it's not ideal. But what we would advise is maybe over the coming days, if you can, or weeks, is to go out in the field and practice what we are going to show you. And really that practice is the best way that you can learn. And in any case, we'll be around if you have more questions. So just contact us by email. So yeah. So first of all, why are scientists studying clouds? Why would we be interested in studying clouds? So I'm sure, you're here on that training, so you're probably interested already, but I'm sure your students, if you tell them that you're going to observe clouds, are going to ask you that question. And it's a good question. We have that beautiful image of the Earth, and at any given moment, about 2/3 of our planet is covered by clouds. In Ireland, it may feel like more sometimes, but on average, that's it. And so as you can imagine, clouds play a very important role on planet Earth, given their extent. And as we know from day to day, they have an influence on the weather, the water cycle, and overall, if we think of our planet as a system, on the Earth energy balance. And that's a concept that is important at a time of climate change. So just showing you a simple image of the water cycle. Of course, clouds are a key element of the Earth water cycle. They bring water from the air to the ground and from one region to another. Then if we think about their role in terms of the planet's average temperature, they have an important impact because they affect how much sunlight can reach the ground. And
Sabrina, can I interrupt you for just 1 second?
Yeah.
So the screen that we are seeing
Right.
is not the screen that everyone else is seeing. It's showing, I think it's saying that we're trying to share, but people are not actually seeing anything.
Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm going to try again then.
Try again.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me try again.
Thanks everyone for letting us know.
Apologies. Real apologies. Okay, let me start again. Okay, let me start from here. Can you see my screen here? Showing some nice clouds reflecting sunlight.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's much better.
That looks good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Start again.
So yeah, here I guess we're seeing two. There are many different scenarios, but clouds play a role and how they let sunlight in and how they retain heat. So if you think about the lower, thicker clouds during the day, they mostly reflect the sun's energy back to space. So they actually, during the day, they have a cooling effect. And we know that from experience when we see a lot of clouds gathering, and especially if they're low. But at night, they have the opposite effect. They kind of act as a blanket around the Earth, and they kind of keep the heat and avoid that it goes back to space. And then during the day, again, if you think about high clouds, and we're going to see some nice illustrations later on, especially the kind of thin ones, they're really, really nice, beautiful clouds, but they tend to let the sunlight in and then trap it. So they have a warming effect. So the role of cloud is quite complex. And scientists are really keen to understand and model that, to understand how they're going to play a role as our planet warms. In terms of the study of clouds is done in different ways, but I guess the one we want to highlight is NASA. It's a key partner to GLOBE. They're a sponsor of the program, and they have several satellites that collect information about clouds, and one of them is very conveniently called CloudSat. And the purpose of that particular cloud, which has a radar to study clouds, is to figure out how much clouds contribute to changes in the Earth climate. So quite a complicated question. You can see on this slide as well that the satellite is observing the clouds from above, and you see some people observing clouds from Earth. And it is something that comes over and over from NASA, that whatever we study, be it clouds or vegetation or anything really, we need ground truthing. We need sometimes other pieces of equipment that are on the ground, or people to share their observations in order to validate what the satellites are seeing, because really satellite imagery is an interpretation. It's not perfect. So that's where we come into play as citizen scientists. When we do cloud observations using the Globe Observer app, we can help by helping scientists validate what the satellite are telling them, but also we provide a complementary type of observation, because we're looking from bottom up, and satellites are having a different perspective, a kind of a top-down perspective. So we've talked a lot about the scientists, but I want to talk more about, I suppose, the teachers now, and why cloud observations could, really be really beneficial to you and your students. So here we listed some key skills that your students can develop through cloud observations, and I'm sure there could be more. But the one that comes to mind, obviously, is developing their observation skills. And that type of skill really is useful for any subject, and in all aspects of life, being able to be in a space and kind of getting the big picture, and then maybe fine-tuning what you're seeing. But I think it's especially interesting for those in the room that are science and geography teachers. This is a really, really important skill. And that skill can also be supported if you're a primary teacher or an arts teacher by doing some visual arts, maybe drawing. We do that very often at our trainings, that we have people just sit down, observe the sky, and start drawing and start kind of capturing what's going on. Observation skills as well, besides, the ability, giving us the ability to understand what's going on, are also using other parts of our brain and put us in a kind of a relaxed mode that can be really positive for well-being and feeling present. So also another benefit to your students. Tonight, we're going to talk about clouds a lot and describe them. And that can link really nicely with English. We're going to use different words to describe them. Maybe feelings sometimes, do they make us happy or heavy? Especially if you're in the field, you get that sense. So yeah, it's great for using rich vocabulary. And again, it can be used by teachers who teach languages, Irish, and maybe even poetry. So we can learn, again, we can use something like that to then and run with it, whatever we're teaching. Applied math is another thing you're going to see tonight. We're going to try and estimate the percentage of sky covered by clouds. So that's percentages. Really interesting way to talk about percentages, looking at something real and just outside the window. And I think one that I really like as well with clouds is that the sky is really big. There's a lot going on, especially in Ireland. Like, we have wind and things can actually go and change quite fast. So it's a great topic to work as a team. So we're going to see how you can have several observers, and then you may have to kind of discuss to get to a consensus. So there are different skills, and maybe if you want to think to yourself and see how this applies to what you're doing, to your curriculum, And if you want to enter in the chat box, how this is relevant to you or how it links up with what you teach, it'd be great to know. And Aileen is going to give some examples. So maybe in the next few seconds, if you could see if anything I mentioned resonated with you. Okay, I don't see anything in the chat box.
No chats, yeah. I think I was going to say that everyone's having that Monday night feeling and realized that it was Tuesday. So, but yeah, there's a couple of comments about just mindfulness, the feeling of, I suppose, a little bit of calm and probably just a different from the fast pace of the day. And English, yeah, exactly. Like it's the whole language element, I think is fantastic. Yeah, and just the differences that you observe, that just like what Sabrina was saying, between you can look in one direction and make a cloud observation and someone else can be facing the other way and have a completely different observation. So we always talk about trying to look in all different directions. Yes, yeah, little fluffy clouds like music. I mean, it's great and it's a wonderful subject to explore. And it's great to see people making those connections there too. So thanks everyone for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you. And I know it's important to teachers to make links to their curriculum because as much as we love clouds, if it doesn't support your objectives, then it may just, not happen at all. So I think, as we go through that training, you may keep that in mind. Okay, so two images of clouds here, but really, I suppose the message here is that in Globe, there are really great resources to get familiar with clouds. There is a Globe Observer app. Aileen had sent an email with a link, so if you can have a look at that. What is really interesting about that app is that there's a wizard function. So it's a little bit like a guide, really helping you figuring out what's going on in the sky. And as you become more at ease with the process, you don't have to use it, but it's really nice to start off. And the second aspect of the app is that when you share your observation, you're doing that work of the citizen scientist. Other people, it's open data then, and anyone can see your data. And usually it's people in the Globe community or NASA or other scientists or other students that may be interested in your data. So I think the Globe Observer app is a really good one. And of course, if you prefer to work with pen and paper, and even if you work with the app, the cloud chart is great. It is very visual. Just like on the screen, you can see images of clouds and you can compare and contrast with what you're seeing in the sky. Also, I suppose what's important is the timing when to observe clouds. Of course, you can observe them at any time during the day. But one timing that is really nice is to find out when a satellite is going to pass over, and within 15 minutes of that to make an observation. And again, that's an information that is in the app, so you can get an idea of when they're going to pass over the next days, and maybe then set some time to do a cloud observation. And what's really nice is that not only will it help with that kind of ground truthing, but also there is an email from NASA that you'll get with details of what the satellites were seeing from their perspective, so you can compare and contrast, which is really nice. So it's a nice feature. Then in terms of where to observe the clouds, I mean, it is intuitive. You're going to use your eyes to look at the sky. You want to see as much sky as possible. So in an ideal scenario, you want open ground. You don't need to see as far as the horizon, but it's kind of like big open skies. So maybe the middle of a sports field is good. But that's the ideal scenario. And then that may not actually be practical for you or even possible. And that's fine. Do as well as you can. We had schools from the inner city making some cloud observations, and they had a small yard and it was fine as well. So do what you can, but that's the ideal scenario. And then how to make it work with your class? Well, I'm sure you know best, but just to give you some examples, I was mentioning group work before, so you can see it here. I guess initially, maybe, you know, especially if you have a large group, you may want to form a circle with everyone looking at a section of sky. If it's sunny, maybe just be mindful of people facing the sun. They may you may rearrange that circle somehow. But then it's a really nice way to have different people reporting on what they see and get, you know, people involved and learn together. And then as your students become more confident, maybe you could split them in smaller groups, let's say 4 people. So that's the kind of star shape that you see on the right-hand side picture. And each group can do their observations together as a team again, and then the different teams can come back together and share their findings. And again, it may be necessary to find a consensus, because there may be differences in views, which is fine. It's all part of the learning. Yeah, that's one idea. Then maybe after a while, you can hand over that responsibility to students who are motivated to continue, and they can share their observations from time to time. Maybe you can tie that in with a project or an inquiry-based project. Just one thing I wanted to add is something really nice we saw, which was older students teaching younger students at a school. And this is a really powerful way for students to really master the process of observing clouds, and also to think about ways to teach others. So the class it happened with was extremely motivated as a result, and really proud. So if it's something you can encourage, it could be really nice. So just some ideas, and I guess, Aileen, are you happy to take over from me?
Yeah, that sounds good, Sabrina. She's in the middle of reading some of these questions, but
Okay.
it's just one question. Just to say on the app itself that
Yeah.
once you go in and you get into that section on clouds, you can have a look at the times that the flyover of the satellites are, and you'll see, like, I'm just looking now for the times relating to my location right now, which the app will pick up. So it'll use your own coordinates there. And I can see there's several times. So even just for tomorrow, looking for me, I could get up in the middle of the night and have a look and then say, I can't really see much. But then during the day, there's several flyovers, the Terra satellite, and there's the NOAA 20. I think that's one of the geostationary ones, maybe. But you'll see them all listed there. So you could plan your day. And for some of them, you may get an email within a day or two, but then there's other satellites that will also be taking images around the same time, maybe at a higher level. And you can even get several satellites pooling in with their data. And the nice thing is, you know, it can be a little off-putting at first if you get your percentage cloud cover wrong, but you do get better. So that's the thing. So don't worry at first if you say this percentage of the sky is covered with clouds and it doesn't quite match up. With experience, you get a lot better at it. So just to give everyone some encouragement on that. Sabrina, can you put on to the next slide? Yeah.
Of course.
Okay, so I put these 2 pictures here really just to remind myself. So on the left, there's that weather and traffic observation chart for the teachers that are taking part in the air quality campaign. And I know that we had suggested that you go outside and take some cloud observations as part of your air quality study. And the main reason just for doing that was the effect that pollution in the air can have on what you see outside. So the color of the sky, or how obscured the buildings are. And now it depends what type of pollution, but there are strong links there. So if the students are wondering, you know, why are we looking at clouds? I thought we were looking at pollutants. It's a nice way really to get them outside and look at the sky and think, what's out there? What am I breathing? What am I seeing? So that's really just to, you know, tell you a little bit that link. The second thing I wanted to say, that if, you know, you're with a primary school group, like, you know, or maybe a secondary school group, it doesn't really matter. But if there's only one phone or one app there. And if you wanted to hand out an actual recording sheet to the students that they could follow along, the process is the same. So whether you use the app or you follow along the sheet, the basic process is the same. So we'll be sending links where you can download those sheets if you want to use them. There's a lot on them, to be honest. It's one pager and it's a little bit dense. So if you have younger students, they might be a little bit put off by that. You could focus more on getting them to just make basic observations. It's really, your own class anyway, so you can have a quick look at it and see if it would be appropriate or not. Sabrina, can you go next slide? So then so we're going to just imagine that we're outside and we're just beginning our study, right? So we brought the whole class outside, or you've gone out yourself. The very first question you're going to ask is, can you see? What can you see, right? So this is a really obvious question, but it's even by saying you can't really see much because it's telling us something. So even if you just get into that first question, it's meaningful. So if you're in a situation where maybe you're up on top of a hill and the mist has come in, fog's come in, and you can't make a cloud observation in those conditions, but it is telling us something about what's going on in the atmosphere. This can happen for many reasons. For us, it's mainly fog. Maybe if you're right by the sea and there's some sea spray, you can't really, tell what's going on with the clouds. So that's just a basic question. Okay, so you can either say, yes, I can actually see, or no, actually, it's obscured for whatever reason. There's a volcano erupting, whatever your reason is. And then you just move on. Okay, so mostly, we can make an observation. So you're going to go to the next question then. So the next part's really, it's basic, but there's also, like everything, there's reasons behind it. So the first question here is, what color is your sky? This can bring up a lot of debate in a group. The best thing is to look up at about a 45-degree angle and have a look for the deepest color in the sky. And, if the kids or students or anyone starts asking you, like, why bother? This is telling us something, like all those different wavelengths, those different colors are coming from the sun. And the shorter wavelength, the blue and indigo, are causing that blue color. But if we have aerosols in the sky, so that's little particles, it could just be salt from the sea, it could be water droplets, or it could be a pollutant. That is going to change the color. So if we have no aerosols and it's a lovely day, we'll see a deep blue sky. But if we have some, maybe some sea spray or some pollutant in there, the sky will be a lighter color on the milky pale blue side. So it's telling you something. And then with visibility, it's the same. You look straight across towards the horizon. And again, it can be super sharp. So if you're looking across at buildings and they're very well defined, or maybe you have a beautiful landscape in front of you with mountains and it's very well defined, it would be unusually clear. And then the other end of the spectrum is, it's very hard to really pick out the usual landmarks that you would. So they're just the basic kind of setup. And this is the whole point, is just to make these basic observations and link it back to why are we asking these questions? And then you can go forward with your cloud observations. Okay, next slide, Sabrina. Okay, a great question to start with is, are there any clouds? So we just spoke about like how in Ireland, like obviously it feels like we rarely would have a cloudless day. The great thing is that the clouds are always changing. So you think you have your cloud observation done and you maybe look at the app for a minute or two, and then you look up and you're like, well, actually it's kind of changed now. So it's good to sort of bring up these things to the students. What do we do about this? So you're making your cloud observation in that particular moment. And with the clouds, if you're trying to get that percent cloud cover, it's tricky. And it is something you're going to get more experience with, and you get it dialed in after a while. If you are with a group, the best thing to do is to split them into the 4 different quadrants and have them each kind of reach a consensus, because a group consensus is a lot more valuable and you'll end up with a sort of more reasonable answer that way. And then you can try to get the average then. So it's quite straightforward. You have very little clouds, you're on the clear, 0 to 10%, maybe you're isolated. That would be a nice day in Ireland. Or you have a lot more clouds right up to the overcast, greater than 90%. So try your best and have a go at that. So that's your cloud fraction. I think that was one of the questions to fill out on the chart for air quality. That's fine, Sabrina. Yeah. Okay. So the key here is, for cloud shapes, it's all about knowing the height. So the name of the cloud is going to be associated with the shape and the height. Okay, but what would be nice to start with this, and this goes back to the language, what Sabrina was saying, is don't tell them the name yet at the beginning, and just have them describe what they see. And they'll use all sorts of like lumpy, cauliflower like a blanket, and get all that great vocab out and all those great observations. Because if you start bringing the actual vocab, the scientific vocab too soon, some kids will just get quite distracted by that and trying to memorize it and think about it. So let them free to observe, first of all, talk about the colors, the shapes, everything. And then we can try and then introduce the language. Now, some of the students will know some of these, but basically the most, prominent cloud that kids are usually going to draw are the cumulus clouds. They're the puffy, cauliflower like, whatever they want to call them, clouds. So that's the most kind of, I think, well-known cloud observation. And the one that we would see a lot in Ireland is the stratus. So that's just like a blanket. And often it can be kind of a grayish blanket with very little sun coming through. So that's the stratus. And then the third one there on the bottom is that nice kind of feathery, wispy, high up clouds. And cirrus is the word that we use for them. So they're the kind of three, I think, if for the students, just getting that in their head, those three different: cumulus, stratus, and cirrus. That's a great start. Now, yeah, perfect. So what about these names that go by height as well? So this is a tricky thing, I think, to try and say from the ground what height a cloud is at. So for the naming convention, at ground level, a cumulus cloud is called cumulus, right? If you're up higher, so that's up to about, 3,000 meters, at this mid level, so to speak, so that's, kind of between 2,000 and 6,000 meters, they put alto in front of it. So that would be alto cumulus. Okay, so cumulus at the bottom, that's when it's really big and it feels like it's going to close down on you almost. Then you have alto cumulus is in the middle. And then if it's up at the very kind of top level on our chart, we would call it a cirrocumulus. Okay, so they're the three different levels. Now, especially when you start this, it's quite hard to tell whether a cloud is, a lower level or a higher level. Okay, so there's a couple of tips around doing that. With the cumulus, if you have the students stand and put their arm kind of at about a 45-degree angle, so like pointing up like you can see in the picture, if the shape and size of the cloud fits relatively, the same size as a fist, it's likely that that's a low level cloud. So that would be just cumulus. If it's more closer to their thumb, so have them hold their thumb up, that's probably a mid-level cumulus cloud. So that'd be alto cumulus. And then finally, if it's something that would be more size of a pinky finger, then that's the cirrocumulus. So that's just a rough way as an indication of those different heights. And so you'll name it based on that shape, that those cumulus and the stratus and cirrus, and then with the height as well. So that's the naming convention. I think there's some words there at the bottom, Sabrina. So I think they'll click in. Yeah, so when you'll get all these slides, so you'll be able to see. But that's basically, just about holding their arms out and get them to talk about that together. Okay, so that's the cumulus. So we'll go to the next slide. Now, the same convention for stratus. If you see that blanket cloud that we see commonly in Ireland, stratus, okay? If it's at a higher level, you will usually see the sun, or it could be the moon at night, I guess. You will see it, just a little hint of it. It won't be like in the first picture where it's stratus. You don't really see much. You don't even see your shadow in that. But the second one, you might see a bit of a shadow, and you'll see the sun kind of, you'll say it's off, it's fighting to break through the clouds. So that's alto stratus. And then same convention again. If it's quite high up and you can kind of see a more clearly defined sun, and you see that halo going around, that's the cirrostratus. Okay, so there's the words to match. And then just to mention, yeah, that's the slide, Sabrina. It's perfect timing. Our rain clouds, so the nimbus clouds, so they kind of follow a similar-ish convention. They're low level. But we have the cumulonimbus, that's on the top. They're more like those big thunder clouds. They're puffy and they can be quite large. You see on the picture on the left from far away, you can see them coming, and they're kind of big thunder clouds, and that's cumulonimbus. More likely what we would see would be nimbostratus, which is the more blanket, and it's actively raining. So if you are saying, you know, that it's nimbostratus, or you can see something in the distance with a big puffy dark cloud, and you can see the rain. They're the nimbo clouds. That is rain. Okay, so it's currently raining in that area. So they're the main things to get across, right? So you're just talking about those shapes first of all, and then you can give the vocab for that, and then you're talking about the height in the sky, and then using those little tips. And then the last ones are the rain clouds, the cumulonimbus and the nimbostratus. So I hope that that helps. So I think what we're going to do now is a little quiz. Now this is just for also entertainment value for yourselves. So I'm going to show a few slides of clouds, and if you could put your answer into the chat box without worrying about being wrong. And then just to remember that often this is when you're doing a cloud observation, you'll often see many different types of clouds, and that's fine too, right? So you could see one all by itself and it's still valid. Okay, so let's have a go at this then. So yes, we'll have a look at this photo. Kind of looks like Ireland. I didn't take this one. I think Sabrina
I did. Yeah.
So I don't know if I can see the chat box here. So have a look have a look at the horizon first of all, and then take a look up higher. And if anyone has any idea about the name, if you don't know the name and you just want to describe it, that's fine too. So I see someone as cumulus coming in. Yep. And so cumulus, so they are puffy clouds, and I think everyone can see the puffy gray bit in the middle. It's quite dark. And then if I look more towards the horizon, I believe I can see it's raining. Yeah, they're low, they're definitely low. I can see a kind of rain shower in the distance. So I probably would say we have kind of almost a blanket of puffy clouds, just to make it complicated, like a puffy layer, like stratocumulus. And then we might have some nimbo stratus as well, and where that rain shower is taking place. But you can see there's higher level clouds too. There's probably an alto stratus a little bit higher up, and you can see a little bit of a blue window. Okay, so that was our first, cumulonimbus.
Yeah, cumulonimbus is good. Good guess as well. They were showers. They were coming towards me, or actually, no, they were going away, and they were heavy showers. Cumulonimbus, they come and go. But they're So it's a good guess, and then you explain the other shapes as well. So next one.
Next one. Okay, so there's lots of blue there. That's usually a good hint. And it's kind of a wispy. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, someone's favorite, the cirrus.
Yeah, it is. We don't see them enough, I think. Although we can never say that anymore of what we do want to see, because we talk about getting better weather and then start thinking about other consequences. But that's great. Yeah. So it's probably high up cirrus cloud. So that's fabulous. Keep going to
and it is hard because you don't have context, I guess, for those pictures. When you're going to be outside, you're going to have a better understanding, how much of the sky it's covering. So I understand someone said stratus, and I understand why, but they were serious that day. Okay. Does it remind you of anything?
I know, it's like it's what we're hoping not to see tomorrow.
Blanket.
Yeah, exactly.
Stratus, yeah.
And you can tell it's low lying. Yeah, exactly. And it might, it's probably, it's changeable, obviously, but you don't really see any active rain there at the moment. So, but it, could be coming. Very good.
Okay, so stratus was, easy for everyone. Some nice clouds with shapes. I think, as you said, kids' favorite.
I know.
Use your imagination and see shapes.
Started with this one. This is a lot easier, isn't it?
Yeah, cumulus, perfect. Yeah.
And low level, that's a really good comment, because I know we're not there, but let's just imagine we're on that beach, and I'm guessing that they would be more like that kind of fist size.
Sleeping dragon, lovely. Yeah, so they were cumulus, but the clouds change shape all the time. So it's easy for cumulus to change into a stratus.
Yawning dragon.
Dragon.
I love it.
Excellent.
Next time we'll have a totally different meeting.
Okay, so I'm in the middle of the picture, apologies, but you want to look at the clouds behind me.
You can see the like advantage of describing first, you know, and that's so important with the students if you're doing it with a group. Like, so make your observations first and then the name, especially when you're starting off.
Yeah, high
Yeah.
level cumulus could be a really good guess.
Yeah, I
So
like that because they do
little
have the puffballs.
puffballs.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
I mean,
It is in a layer.
there is a lot. So, they might change into stratus, but I think at that point they were still, it's quite puffy.
And in
The
the
height,
background, it's less puffy, maybe. Maybe there's some
yeah,
altostratus
that's
and then
true.
or
Yeah,
cirrostratus. Yeah. You can see how you can get into a massive debate about this with a
exactly.
group.
That's
But
what we're doing now.
yeah. Conversations ourselves. Okay.
Okay. Okay, I think that's the last one.
Okay.
You're pros now. You can do this. So you can see it was the sun, a halo, but you don't see it so
Yeah, you see
clearly.
the
Sun
halo.
halo,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's quite high up. Yeah.
It is advanced.
But that's brilliant.
Irish summers, exactly. That's true.
Yeah.
So that would be a cirrostratus, if I'm correct. So kind of a blanket, but really high up, really
Yeah.
thin. So you can still see, yeah, the sun's halo, even though you're not it's not recommended to look at it. But
Yeah, we try not
yeah.
to. But I wonder, Sabrina, like there's some extra slides and with more just resources and links on there that
Mm-hmm.
we will send
Yeah.
um, to you all after this, just whoever, registered for the meeting. But what we're going to do is we're going to stick around. So like we're more or less done here now. And I'm sure like it was very brief, obviously. And we really just wanted to give you enough to get started. We can do something more detail if required, or we're happy to respond to emails or phone calls. But what we were thinking is that if we stick around, if you have any questions in particular just about using the app or anything at all, Sabrina and I will stay here for a few moments and happy to answer any of your questions. So I'll stop recording now.